Okay, this is a Bugaboo Buffalo chassis, and today we're going to talk about what to do when this connection strut, I suppose you might call it, is broken. A lot of times when we get these in, it's broken all the way off, but you can see this one's almost broken all the way off. Yeah, so we're going to have to swap out this part. Bugaboo does not sell this part, but it's often possible to find a damaged chassis on used markets that where one of these has broken off. Or something else is wrong. And so we're going to show how to swap out this whole part. This includes, for example, if you buy a damaged chassis and the same side is broken off. It's possible, the sides are not completely reversible, but with a very small altercation, you can use the other side for this side. And I'm going to show that as well. So the first thing we're going to need to do in order to swap out this part is to drill out this rivet. I'm going to flip the chassis over so we can get the rivet from underneath. It's using a 5mm drill bit. That's the right size. 5mm is the magic number for most stroller things. Now we're going to take off this, and I find the best way to do that is just with a butter knife. This one's actually a bit loose. You just get underneath and pry it off, and afterwards you'll use super glue on this rim, I'll show you, in order to put it back on. So now we're going to unscrew out this screw. Charged my screw gun, obviously, but it'll work anyway. The model has changed over the years, but on most newer models there are these holes, so when you're putting it back you're going to get the holes to fit into the pegs. Now we can begin to take apart these discs. Under here, I'll show you. There's this piece, and this is the mechanism for folding down the chassis. When you're taking apart the whole thing, it's always best to remove this piece because there's this little spring. And if this piece comes loose without you meaning to, this spring is tiny and it can shoot clear across the room and get lost. So I always take it off first so that I don't lose it. And there's this disc. And we can remove this piece. And there's this piece. And at this point, because we've removed this rivet, you can actually pull this piece back. That'll give you a little bit more room. Now, in order to take this piece off, we're also going to have to remove these metal supports. And we'll put them back in afterwards. One, there's this piece, take off, and then we can try to slide this out. That's possible. We have to remove this metal support as well. I think it'll work, but you're going to have to pull in these little white pegs a little bit to get it past. No, you have to remove the metal piece. Okay. There. Now, I'm going to pull it out. Pinch in these white pegs. And pull it past. Okay. You can just take this piece off as well for now. So here was the damaged piece. Yeah. And here is a fresh piece. Okay. So, as you can see looking at this, this is the opposite side. So it's this side, my new piece. So in order to get it to fit on this, I have to make a small altercation. The altercation occurs with this piece. There's this little bump here, yeah? And there are like corresponding holes here that this goes in. And then where this part comes out, it fits in here. So in order to get this piece to fit on here, I have to remove this bump so that I can fit it on the opposite side where there's no hole for this bump to fit in. So I've actually already done this on another piece. I've just sanded down that bump. It doesn't really affect stability because there's still 4 other points of stabilization on this. Now we can put this on and it will fit in nice and smooth. Then we can put this new piece on. Oh, I did this wrong. You have to put this on afterwards. All right, let's slide this piece on. Again, there are these white pieces that sort of get in the way. You need to press them in so that it slides in. There. Pull it in a little bit further. Now we can put this piece on. And it's got to go the opposite way since we're using the wrong side. And then it all should just slide into place. There we go. Okay, after having checked that this piece fits in correctly when we use our altered piece here, I've now taken off the altered piece and slid it back a bit for room. The first piece that's going to go back on with reassembly is this white piece, and it goes on in this direction. It's going to slide in here. Then we can put our altered piece back on. Then we want to slide this metal piece back through the white assembly, and it has grooves which will correspond with the plastic here. So you can kind of feel when it's correct. This part will fit right into a groove on the inside of this piece, like this. Now, the trick with this white piece and sliding this back into place is that the width here lines up with these little hacks here on the inside of this piece. So that when you get it correct, see now I have to slide this white disc up a bit. When you get it correct, these pieces will slide tightly together. See? I can push them all the way in and there's no gap here. If there's a gap here, it means that that white ring is positioned incorrectly. So, now that's all in place. Okay, after slotting on this disc then, we're going to put this metal stopper back in place. And there's 2 grooves, one on this side and one on the other, and one of them is smaller. And you're gonna put it in from the wider side, and you can see that the head of it is smaller. That's gonna slide into the other side. So you're gonna need to use something in order to pull up this top part of this white assembly a little bit as you get this in place. And then you have to kind of fiddle it around. And looking in from this side, you can see that this head is now flush when I push it in with the pole. And we're going to slide this piece in place. Again, making sure that all of these discs are tight. Then we'll flip this on its side and do the final assembly. Put this piece with the tiny spring back on. And I'm going to put this piece. So these square pegs point outwards, and this gradiated fins, I suppose, go inwards. There is a wider gear tooth, and that corresponds here. back up. Slide it in, and you can depress the locking mechanism once and kind of jiggle it to get it to be tight. Back on its side. Piece goes in. And the last thing to do is just to glue the disc back in place. So we're just going to put some glue along this white element. And put this back. Just hold it for a moment. Now, after the whole mechanism has been reassembled, we're going to put the rivets back in. And the reason I do that at the end is because I find that if I put them in too early, it's inevitable that I have to shift around pieces since there's so many components, and getting them in the right order onto the pole can be difficult. And if you put the rivets in first, you will inevitably find you have to drill them out again. So, very end, you put the rivets in. Now, solid. Mechanism works, and your stroller works again.